Hi there, I'm Richard Hill, the host of eCom at One, and welcome to episode 201. It's 201. The 200 was a couple of weeks ago now. We had a little break and we're back with more. Episode 201. In this episode, I speak with Shaun Loughlin, Head of Commerce and Technology at LeMieux's. With 20 years hands-on experience in e-commerce and international expansion, we had to get Shaun on the show. We talked the mission behind LeMieux's and their strong focus on brand and the positive impact that's been having on sales. What data is really important when it comes to scaling an e-commerce store business successfully. And Shaun shares LeMieux's focus for the coming year. And of course, so much more in this one. If you enjoyed this episode, hit the subscribe or follow button wherever you are listening to this show so you're always the first to know when a new episode is released. Now, let's head over to this fantastic episode. Hi, Shaun. How you doing?
Morning. How are you doing, Richard?
I'm really good. How's things at your end?
Busy. Same answer I always give whenever I'm asked that question.
Oh, well, we'll step into that because I think that's standard, isn't it, in this industry? I mean, anything to do with what sort of the type of role you're doing, and obviously always a lot going on. So we'll step into that busyness. But
especially this
before
time
we
of year.
we're literally crazy quarter is upon us, isn't it? Which is it's good, but it's has its challenges. Interesting. So before we get into it, I think it'd be great for you to introduce yourself and how you also got into the world of e-commerce.
Sure. So my name is Shaun Loughlin. I'm the head of e-commerce and technology at LeMieux's, which is the leading equestrian brand in the UK, very rapidly expanding internationally and becoming a global leader in our space. And to be honest, I never had any intention of working in this field. It's not something I studied for or consciously decided to do. It just kind of naturally happened. I started in my early 20s in the warehouse of a tiny motocross distribution and mail order business in the west of Ireland, of all places. People might have picked up my accent, which is kind of watering down to a Terry Wogan-esque drawl at this point. I think I've just approached the point where I've been here for more of my life than I was actually in Ireland. So I'm officially a plastic paddy now, I think is the term. But anyway, 15 years after I joined that company, was one of the largest action sports retailers in the country. And we had 20 websites, 80 staff, operations all over Europe. And I'd worked my way up from carrying boxes in the warehouse to being the MD. And if I'm honest, I'm still not entirely sure how that happened.
So you've seen it all, I guess, from packing that box, probably well, shouting, "Where's the tape?" You tape the boxes to obviously everything that comes with being an MD, people, purchasing, process, obviously the list goes on. So quite a journey then, a lot of things we can step through.
I've done a little bit of pretty much everything. I'm a jack of all trades, and I would hesitate to say a master of none.
I'm sure you're very, very modest, but we'll find out in a minute. So tell me more about LeMieux's then. So obviously that's where you've been now for, I think, just 6 years-ish. So tell me more about sort of the mission behind LeMieux's.
The mission is to enable riders to look good, feel good, and perform at their best all year round. That's the official company tagline, and our ambition is to be the most exciting equestrian brand on the planet. And that wording is chosen quite carefully. It's not to be the biggest; it's to be the most exciting. So think Ferrari and not Toyota.
Yeah. So obviously 6 years, you must have seen quite a bit of change. Obviously 6 years in, I guess you didn't come in packing boxes. You still came in fairly senior in the business. But obviously now, 6 years later, how's the business changed?
I think in that 6 years. 3 years, not 6 years. Although it has gone quickly, but it has gone quickly, but not that quickly. So I joined as head of e-commerce, and the e-commerce department when I joined was one very talented, smart equestrian lady who built the website pretty much on her own with a bunch of external agencies.
Yeah.
And I've kind of built that up over the last 3 years to a full e-commerce and technology setup. So there's now 17 staff, various little teams within the department. And over that time, we've grown the business 200%.
Oh, wow. Incredible. Yeah.
So
maybe the teams then. So you've got So would you say, obviously when you came in, then there was no teams, it was all external, obviously with a very smart owner, sort of at the helm, very much taking control of the e-commerce side, but then you came in, with no sort of full-time e-com staff or, sort of technology and marketing staff. And now you've got 17. Step me through that sort of, how did you tackle that? Where did you start? How did you sort of decide on the different teams?
So there was an e-commerce manager who was a completely self-taught lady called Jodie Bradshaw, who I was very lucky to inherit because she's actually a very passionate equestrian herself as well. So she built the website kind of for herself, being the customer, and that's why it works so well. So I was very lucky to join the kind of basic infrastructure was there and was good. And it was just about getting more traffic to the site and getting more eyeballs on it. The brand was very well distributed. So there was a bit of brand heat. It had a large social media following. So it was just about like sort of capturing the demand that was already there. So, scaling up the digital marketing efforts and just doing kind of bread and butter e-commerce. And the early stages were fantastic because everything we did worked because nothing had really been done before. Yeah. So everything we switched on just drove results, and it was a great time.
Mm. That's an interesting one, isn't it? Because I think just literally quite often, just certain channels just not been active, activated. Whether that's, different shopping channels, whether that's invested in SEO, whether that's working on TikTok. I can see you guys, I was on TikTok last night, believe it or not, it happened. And I saw some of your, I can't remember exactly about some obviously some of your content on there. Obviously a lot of channels which we'll step into. But I guess from going from sort of one person to 17-ish in 3 years, that's quite a growth, isn't it? In 3 years, what's been sort of one or two of your key learnings on the hiring side? Obviously, I think there'll be a lot of people listening that are sort of on similar revenue terms, maybe as you guys, or approaching those revenues, and they maybe got a mix of team and agency. But really, maybe 17 is quite a big team, isn't it? I know you're about 100 people. Well, according to my LinkedIn stats, you're about 100 people total. Is that about right?
170 now.
Oh, do you know, my stats are completely wrong on me today. I do apologize.
Don't trust LinkedIn.
Somebody's getting fired. It was me. So we're about 100. I'll do that bit again then. We're at about 170 people, Shaun. And obviously, when you came in 3 years ago, there was just a handful, maybe one lady there representing the marketing side. Those sort of key hires that you've made, step me through those.
The first kind of big hire, most significant, was a data manager. Because one of my biggest challenges, it was just, there was no data. There was nothing, we didn't even have the ability to build a Google feed. So I spent my first 4 weeks manually typing into a spreadsheet to get a Google feed built. So we hired a data manager, brought in a product information management system, and that just completely changed the game because it just gave us access to information, gave all our wholesale customers access to better data, meant that there was one single source of truth, meant that we could do things like scale up a marketplace business, which was just completely incremental revenue, and meant that we could localize and internationalize and translate the website and scale up in a way that was manageable. So that was a massive unlock, just getting that kind of basic digital infrastructure in, and that kind of allowed us to build on from there.
Yeah, that data feed. I think we're having a conversation right now with a brand. I think they're about 20 million. They don't have shopping. They don't run shopping. They've got about 50,000 SKUs, and it's just like, wow, is this actually a real conversation? So they're in for some really good times soon. I'm actually with them this afternoon. Actually, after this call, I'm heading that way to have a meeting with their team. But
they're going to have a great couple of years.
Yeah, I'm actually so excited for them because it is just like, wow, they're part of a bigger group, and some of the group have it, but this particular brand that they've acquired doesn't have it, and we look after the other feeds. So it's going to be good times for them, for sure. Yeah. So obviously that you mentioned there, obviously you spent that sort of 3 or 4 weeks, with that person came in, you identified that and worked with them to get the feed right and get that data right. That unlocked different marketplaces, different languages, the ability to obviously open up in different markets. Any sort of tips on that in terms of the data feed? I think, most obviously e-commerce stores should be using a data feed, but any sort of things you've learned along the way around data feeds that are a bit more than having color and size and price breaks, and any specific sort of little bits that you add into the feed or you're conscious of that are really, really important that's maybe not as known?
Product description. Just good, unique product descriptions. I mean, there's so many retailers that use the boilerplate stuff provided by brands, or there's so many brands that hire a junior copywriter, which is something that just blows my mind, because you spend so much money on your sales team, your reps, your people who go out there and sell your product, and then you put so little effort into the thing that is your kind of virtual salesman online, which is your product description and information. It's just such a big miss for most companies.
Yeah, it still begs belief that people take that feed from, say, the manufacturer, distributor, and just pull it in, dump it in their site, and they're done. Rather than, obviously, as you say, copyright, rewrite, make it unique, make it the best copy. The way that Google is going to list that product if it's searched for based on what you've called it in the feed, getting the right variables into the description, not just into the other variables, if you like, or the custom labels. It amazes me still. It amazes me still. So when you're looking at different marketplaces and different maybe countries to go into, how do you sort of identify which ones? Obviously you've tried a few now, no doubt stuck with a lot of new marketplaces or maybe countries as well. Step me through that thought process and some of the learnings from that.
So it's kind of about organic traction for us. There's so much spillover from the UK market in our space, because England is like kind of the center of the English riding equestrian market. So in the US, for example, you've got Western and English. And English is like, think of dressage, show jumping, that kind of thing. And Western is think cowboys and bucket broncos. And we're very much in the English side. So England is kind of the mecca for that. So there's a lot of spillover from the UK market into other countries. And we can just see where we're getting organic traction. And very early on, it was identified that the US was the big opportunity. So that we went after that. And now it's about European markets. So it's based on where we're getting organic traction. So it's Germany, it's France. Soon it'll be Spain and Scandinavia. And rather than a kind of scattergun approach, which is what I took when I joined, we've now got a more joined up approach. So marketing, sales and wholesale and digital are all going in aligned with a sort of market entry plan that's more coordinated. So you've got boots on the ground, you've got digital presence, you've got events, and they all kind of feed into each other and create this snowball effect. So our fastest growing market at the moment is the US, because it's just being hit from all angles, and that's been incredibly successful. And it's new to me because I've come from mainly online pure play, where what you do online is everything that you live and die by. So it's interesting to see the impact of physical availability in market and events and all these other kind of offline things, and how significant they are and how much they contribute to this snowballing effect.
So looking more at this, literally looking at the organic side for what's happening on the ground, in effect, in the different countries. So do you have people out there that in these different countries?
Yep. Yeah. So we have a full US team. We have a very, very good partner in the Benelux and the DACH region. So Germany and Austria and Switzerland. And we work very closely with them, and they just basically operate as extensions of the internal team. And we putting a fair amount of effort into making sure that everyone's aligned and kind of singing from the same hymn sheet.
So then do you start with, let's say you've identified the US, so then you're obviously, you can physically see that, you can see it on like organic socials, organic Google, for example, but obviously on the ground there's different shows. There's a whole what's the word I'm looking for? There's a whole sort of series of shows, exhibitions, a whole community you can genuinely see building. But then obviously you have to decide, which maybe performance strategy you're going to roll out? Do you sort of start with like Google Shopping? Have you got like a go-to strategy on the paid media?
So we use a digital first market entry approach because it's just the most efficient financially. It's the most low risk. And yes, absolutely, Google Shopping, search in general is a great one because it's demand driven,
Yeah.
right? So if somebody's going online and searching for your product and saying, I want it, there's there's some level of demand there that can be met. So that's step one, is definitely Google Shopping, because it's just super easy.
Capturing that demand.
And it's typically profitable. And a certain amount of it is definitely incremental. And then we back that up with paid social, and then we start to look full funnel. So then we start to look at, offline, physical availability in stores with expansion distribution, and all other channels. So we take an omni-channel approach to physical availability and sales, but also to digital marketing.
Yeah. So obviously, we had a little chat off camera. I know you've been very busy recently getting the 35,000 square feet of warehouse off the ground. And now, do you ship internationally from there? Or while we're talking about US, I'm intrigued myself. Are you shipping everything from that one location worldwide then?
We are currently. So we do have physical distribution in the US, which mainly serves our wholesale channel and our marketplace FBA business. We've got some physical distribution in the Benelux, which serves parts of Europe. But the vast majority of what we do ships from our main HQ in the UK, which is kind of spread like a spider all over the south of the UK. So we filled up the current building, we took another one. So we've got this kind of spider web of warehousing, which has made things incredibly challenging for the operational team, especially as we've scaled up. And we're now getting to the point where we can consolidate that into one location. So we've built this enormous new warehouse, the one that you're talking about, which is going to enable us to operate from one big campus in Hampshire, which is going to be game changing for us, because we're used to operating from 7 or 8 different locations.
It's an interesting journey, isn't it? You start with, what you believe is, the right warehouse, and then e-commerce is a very obviously the potential growth in different industries can be wild. In such a short space of time, you get that second warehouse, you think we won't need anything bigger than this, and then the third, and in your case the fourth, fifth, sixth, and seventh, and then you're like, flipping heck, this is getting quite, obviously many years ago probably it was becoming more and more challenging, and having the right systems in place, the right ERPs. Obviously there's a lot. We do a whole episode just on that, but
it's classic. It's classic growth pains, though. These are good problems to have. I certainly wouldn't feel sorry for us.
No. I was seeing that. I'm getting flashbacks. I'm looking at the picture of your 35,000 square feet warehouse. I had 20K when I was doing this square, and I remember buying the racking for it. I can remember how much I paid for the racking. This is like 20 years ago. And I was really impressed with my shiny aluminium feel racking. It was like the aluminium-y look. Can't remember the actual material. It wasn't the sort of traditional red sort of pallet racking, although it was pallet racking. It was like different style with the good memories.
It doesn't stay looking tidy for very long, in my experience. You want to get your pictures early on.
Yeah, I can remember putting the stickers on. Going around, and the guy, the warehouse team were putting all the stickers on for the bin numbers and and all the numbers and stuff. And I was really annoyed that all these stickers were on this brand new racking, and it was like, yeah, good times. Like you say, good problems to have, sort of investing in that. But obviously, I think that'll resonate with a lot of listeners that are going through that journey of, basically, potentially getting a bigger warehouse, investing in the racking and so forth. So that's been a big part of your role as well, then, the warehouse piece.
Yeah, so I inherited the IT department halfway through that project. So it's an enormous multi-million-pound investment that the company's making, and obviously the IT infrastructure is very key to that. Our ERP system has had to go through quite a lot of cyclical development phases to get it ready for that. We're getting very close to peak, and we're still not 100% ready. So I am getting a little bit twitchy and nervous, but I'm sure we'll pull it off. We normally do.
Yeah, I mean, we're sat here, 22nd of October. This will be live in I think on Monday actually, so not won't be long. But yeah, you got to get your wiggle on.
We should be releasing the piece of development that's needed on Monday into the live environment, and then we will deal with the next fire that starts burning after that.
Yeah. Good luck. Good luck.
Now, you might be looking for an SEO boost, a down-to-earth digital PR campaign to share your story, or maybe just some straightforward technical help to amp up your performance. Now that's where eCom Now comes in. A partner that's all about making things easier for your online store. Our services cover everything from creating professional content for your e-commerce categories to refining your product descriptions. Now, whether you're just starting out or have been in it for a while, we're here to deliver real, impactful results that add to your bottom line without unnecessary commitments. You can order one-off or multiple projects with a quick turnaround. Simply choose what you need.
So, obviously, looking at your LinkedIn profile, looking at the history of, the different roles, you've very much been sort of responsible for the growth of different e-commerce businesses, obviously LeMieux's right now. But in terms of sort of improving valuations, we talk about this quite a lot on different podcasts. We've done pure podcasts on valuations and building value and selling. And, what has been the sort of your experience, and what would be your recommendation to e-com stores that are sort of trying to build the value in their e-com stores and say if we're going to go with EBITDA as the sort of common denominator across the industry, what sort of advice would you give to e-com stores that are looking to keep building that EBITDA value?
I'll tell you about the biggest and most important lever that contributes to EBITDA profitability and success overall. And it took me 15 years before I fully understood this, and it's brand. The strength of your brand dictates absolutely everything: your conversion rate, your retention rate, your customer acquisition costs, your resilience to price increases, economic downturns. And the thing is with brand, it introduces perceived value on top of intrinsic value, right? So it's why Rolex costs twice as much as an Omega.
Yeah.
Even though an Omega is the same product, even a technically superior Omega will still be miles cheaper than any Rolex, if you can even find a Rolex that's available to buy. And the only difference there is brand. And I know that may not directly relate to a lot of multi-brand retailers, and I think, how does that impact me? But if you think of like any of the big retailers like Amazon, like ASOS, they have brand, and that defines like how you can respond to everything. If you have to put your prices up, how well is your business going to absorb that? If you have brand, reasonably well. If you don't, very, very difficult. And that's the thing that really adds value to a business and puts a kind of moat and a layer of protection around a business is brand. And it took me a long time to understand that as a concept, because I was always focused on the minutiae, customer acquisition costs, operational costs, and those things are all important. But if you have a brand, you have so much margin for error in getting down to those finer details.
Yeah, very, very wise words, Shaun. I think I would, if you're with us now, I would just pause and have a little think, or probably a little rewind, because I'm totally, that was very well put, Shaun, because I'm 100% agreed. It's a lot of people doing a lot of similar things in the market, differentiating yourself with brand, and obviously we can talk about that more. It's just an absolute game changer, especially if you've got your own brand products. It makes it a lot, I won't say easier, but obviously that's as you alluded to. But so, what are maybe some of the key things you've done then with LeMieux's that's really sort of built the brand? Obviously, you're saying you're doing maybe more offline events and where the actual customers are, and building that community and being part of that community. But maybe a couple of key things that our listeners can maybe go away and are a bit more realistic around what they could maybe go and do, implement, think about.
So something that we've done recently that's been incredibly effective, and I am, as much as I would love to, I'm not going to take any credit for this whatsoever, because it's down to our head of marketing and creative, a very smart guy by the name of Matt Burnett, and it's emotional storytelling. So if you kind of unpeel the layers of why somebody's buying our product. They're buying a product for them and their horse. What's driving that? Is it the price? Is it the functionality of the product? When you get deep down to the core of it, it's because they love their horse, right? That's the hook. That's the reason. It's because they love their horse. So we've started telling emotional stories that connect the brand to that feeling of love for the horse. And the reason that that's so powerful is because A, it says this is the right brand for me. I'm in the right place. This company holds my values. And B, it buys mental availability, because your biggest marketing opportunity is talking to people who aren't ready to buy right now. And this is another classic mistake that businesses make, is they put too much effort into sort of bottom of funnel marketing, trying to sell your brand and your product to people who are ready to purchase it at this exact moment in time. But that's only a few percentage of your addressable audience. Like, if you really want to grow, you've got to be talking to people who aren't ready to buy right now. And the most important the most important thing when you're talking to them is not saying, the individual USPs of your product or your, shipping rates or any of that kind of stuff. It's just buying mental availability, so that when they are in market and they are ready to buy, you're front of mind. And it's a long-term play, and it's difficult for us as eCom guys, because we're used to, I run a campaign and I get results and I can see them tomorrow.
Yeah.
This is like
you've got
measured over months.
Yeah. No, that's brilliant. So I think if you're with us now, what can you be doing? What should you be doing? Of course, you're running ads. Well, you should be running ads, most of you. Investing in, we can list them all off, all the channels. But what are you doing, on brand for that long term? And I think it's, you said about, your colleague who's sort of a master storyteller and copywriter. I think, again, that's a key. Absolutely, most people just do not do that piece. Or, depending on the size of the business. Absolutely key. Well, thank you for that. So I think the next question ties in quite well to the brand. What's your sort of take on discounting? I think, a lot of people, I think we know what it is already, but obviously a lot of e-com stores, they wrongly, it's all about price. What advice would you, you've sort of touched on this already, very much so, but, the sort of alternatives to discounting, or your opinions on discounting, or maybe different ways of discounting?
I mean, it's often a necessary evil, right? And we all do it. We do it at times. It's normally just to hit a short-term number, but long-term it's damaging. It degrades your brand value, and it attracts customers on the wrong basis. If a customer can't afford your product at full price, or they aren't willing to pay full price, then they're not really the right customer profile for your business, are they?
Yeah.
And this is what people need to think about. And the other thing discounting does is it completely messes up the operational gearing of the business. You end up scaling a business that was not built to run on low margins. So you build an infrastructure that needs a certain level of volume to be viable. And then the minute that you stop discounting and the volume inevitably tails off, you're in big trouble. And this is what we see over and over again. Brands get stuck in this merry-go-round of discount cycles. Their business gets hooked on it. And then very, very quickly, they're in this situation that's impossible to fix. You've got an operation that needs the volume to be financially viable. And you've got a database full of customers who won't pay full price for your product. And you're stuck with a low margin business that either treads water or loses money until it collapses. And how often have we seen that? How many fashion brands have come and gone where they've got stuck into these sales cycles and just completely imploded? You see it all the time. And that's basically the reason. So it just needs to be dealt with extremely carefully. And what I've observed over an extended period of time, 20 years in doing this, is that you can put the money into margin loss, or you can put the money into brand building and creating a moat around your business. And if you look over a long enough period, it's pretty much the same money. It's just one takes months and years and the other takes days and weeks. So people always go for the days and weeks, because, this is how we run businesses. We do weekly trade meetings, we do quarterly QBRs, we do 1 year cycles. But over the longer term, it's not a good way to run a business. It's not a good way to grow a business.
creating a moat around your business. Yeah, I love it. I love it. Some absolute sound bites there, Shaun. Thank you for that. Yeah. No, it's so true. I mean, I was sitting here, we talk about price. A lot of obviously we've got hundreds of clients, 100 plus clients in our agency or projects, and price is we're running shopping for probably about 60% of those clients, and obviously one of the first things you see in shopping is price. But obviously, there's a lot more you can do with your shopping feed than to make sure it's more profitable. Just basic things that usually aren't done. Just by having the right layout in the shopping and the right, variables, etc., and spending more money, having that feed managed properly. So you're actually, it's not just about the price, but then you can use price technology, and pricing software on some products to just look at the price. And sometimes, and quite often, as I think you alluded to, it's not about being the cheapest sometimes, because if you're monitoring the stock levels, your own stock levels and competitor stock levels, you can put the price up, not down.
Yep.
So
very few people effectively price up. They only ever price down, and there's definitely missed opportunity, especially if you're selling an evergreen product that doesn't go out of stock.
Yeah.
I think the thing you got to think about as well is, like, what's actually convincing the person to buy? Like, do you think that every new customer you've ever acquired has gone to Google Shopping, seen you for the first time ever, and decided that they're going to trust you with their money in that moment? Yeah. Absolutely not. Like, it's word of mouth referral. It's some out of home marketing that you've done. It's some paid social stuff that you've done. It's a YouTube video. There'll be something much, much further back in their journey that's convinced them I'm willing to give this company my money, and it will not be your pay-per-click ad in 99% of cases. It might be this podcast.
But so true. I think Google's latest numbers, I was at a presentation, I mean, obviously pinch of salt, but sort of 10, 11 now seems to be the number that's sort of around, 10, 11 experiences with the brand, 10, 11 touch points with the brand before a purchase is made, so, all the different channels. But interesting. So I think, we're sort of similar topic. Obviously, we've got we're investing heavily in brand. We're very careful with our pricing. Maybe some discounting when required, and that's obviously fine. But that's not definitely not the general tone of the brand. But we've got sort of more of a luxury brand, and we're aiming for a higher market, and a more affluent market. We're positioning our brand there. When times are a little bit tough, like maybe, depending on the industry, but the general vibe, it's been a tough sort of definitely 3 or 4 months, tough year for a lot of brands. Yeah. How are you sort of managing that economic climate? What sort of other things are you doing? Maybe with sort of obviously the economy being, not in the greatest spot at the moment.
This is the point where all of your listeners probably turn this off and hate me, but honestly, we haven't really had to do much differently. We do have an incredibly strong brand that's product driven. So our price to quality ratio is pretty much unmatched in our space. So if you want a really high quality saddle pad, for example, that lasts a long time at an affordable price, there's not that many other places for customers to look. So we're in a very lucky position that we've got customers coming down to us from really high-end expensive brands because they need something more affordable, but they don't want to give up that quality. And then we've got customers from price point brands moving up to us because they want to buy less often, but they want to spend a little bit more and have something that lasts. So by design, we're in a very good position, but we're also quite fortunate. And again, this is where your listeners hate me, in that our customer base is very resilient. Equestrians do not sacrifice when it comes to their riding. The horse will always come first, and it'll be the last thing that they scrimp on. And, the order of priorities like horse, kids, dog, husband. So the horse is not going to suffer.
Horse gets fed before, I'll eat last sort of thing. They think the horse gets fed first, obviously, and gets all the kit. Kids get a orange for Christmas.
So I'm not in a good position to tell the audience how to deal with the economic downturn, because honestly, so far it's not massively affected us.
So it sounds very rosy, is what you're saying overall. It sounds really good, but I think there must be one
challenge right now? Although it's out, obviously getting that warehouse is going to be a flipping nightmare, to be fair.
Yeah.
But what's one challenge? What's a real sort of, real genuine challenge that you're in the midst of at the moment that you're sort of in sort of overcoming and working through at the moment? What's one challenge that you're facing right now?
So again, everyone's going to hate me. For the first time in my career, I'm working for a business that doesn't have one really big outsized challenge that's holding us back. There's a laundry list of small and medium-sized ones and a lot of growing pains, but there's not one big thing that's like you could point at and say that's really holding us back, and if we could fix it, we'd be going great guns. It's I guess space, as you alluded to, is our biggest challenge, which is a growing pain as opposed to like some big grinding business challenge. But it is difficult, and it's not just a warehouse. Like we're max capacity in the office. So, we've got desks in every area. Meeting rooms have had to be sacrificed to be turned into more desk space. You can't get a meeting room for love nor money. There's negotiations over meeting space, and that causes a lot of business. Yeah, but that in itself causes a lot of business disruption, right? Because sometimes you just need to go and have a private conversation, and if you can't do that, you can't move things forward. So that is a massive challenge on a day-to-day basis, but it's not something that I would say is significantly hindering our growth or success or anything. It's just really unpleasant and inconvenient, and I'm very much looking forward to it being
so.
What
we're saying is, it's inevitable challenges are going to come along, but it's what you do with them, how you plow through them and see them, and having a lack of meeting space is or struggling to find somewhere to sit and have a private conversation with whoever it may be, is a sign of growth. We have exactly the same issue. We've got 6 meeting rooms here, and some days I walk through and it's like, oh crikey, we're full.
We have a booking system.
What are we going to do?
We have a booking system, and even with that, it's a nightmare. But this is scaling. It's cyclical. We're at a position now where we're over capacity relative to our infrastructure. So, that the business is very profitable at the moment because of that. We'll go through a cycle next where we've got to massively invest, and the business will be less profitable because we're geared up for the next 2-3 years. And it's just this cycle that you go on, and it's I think for companies scaling up, especially small businesses that haven't been through this before, it's very difficult to understand that your most profitable period will be your least pleasant, because it will be bursting at the seams, and staff will be screaming at you because there's no space and they're all overworked, and it'll be really like pressure filled, but that's when the business will make the most money. And when it's all lovely and you've got loads of space and lots of spare capacity, you're probably going to be significantly less profitable because you're overcapitalized relative to your turnover. Totally. And it's difficult. It's easy to get lost in that.
So lean into it, embrace it. So every time I ask you for a potential challenge, you're sort of, it's just normal. It just washes off me, no problem. But if you were sort of to look back in your career, maybe, what's maybe one thing you do differently in the past, and what sort of something you've learned from maybe a decision that you've made. Obviously, when you started packing boxes back as a boy, obviously you've experienced a lot of things and made a lot of decisions, or maybe had opportunities that maybe you missed or didn't not miss, but if you could do one thing differently from your past, what would that be?
I think the number one thing I would do differently is educate myself more. So I became quite senior at a pretty young age. I was on a board in my mid-20s, and I spent too much time doing and not enough time learning. I knew absolutely everything about the business I was working in, but I knew absolutely nothing about the world around it. And that led to a lot of mistakes that could have been avoided if I'd have taken more time to educate myself. So now I'm a voracious reader. I go to a lot of conferences, roundtables. I put a lot of time and effort into understanding what's happening in the industry and what's coming up. And I think the biggest unlock from that is I don't wait until I have a problem to then go and learn about it and become expert in it. I'm putting the time and effort into understanding the whole industry holistically all the time, which means when I need a new piece of tech, I've already been to a conference where I've seen who all the vendors are. I know who's who. I know what a reasonable price is.
Yeah.
You know, if I'm trying to solve
Yeah.
some data challenge, I'm kind of aware of roughly who I need to speak to and where I need to go. So it just makes the whole thing move so quickly. And you've been in e-commerce a long time, so you know this as well as anyone. It changes every 3 or 4 years. The whole industry is completely and utterly different. I mean, now we're all obsessed with AI and stuff that just wasn't even on the radar 4 years ago. So if you're not kind of educating yourself as you go and staying abreast of things, you can just very quickly get lost at sea.
I think that's brilliant advice. It really resonates with me. As a young chap, I didn't really read. If I'm honest, I don't think I read a full book till I was probably like 26. Which sounds ridiculous if now, because I've had about 4 on the go, sort of thing. And it's just, most of that knowledge is free. It's out there, isn't it? To go and like say, going to events, meeting people that are in, obviously closely aligned, definitely with e-commerce, but also the niche that you're in, the different events that are very niche specific. Obviously, the e-com events. There's obviously a lot of companies driving a lot of big events now, and smaller groups and dinners and lunches and industry specific, and things, as you say, are changing so much. And if you're not, we talked right at the beginning about the different platforms you're on, obviously a lot. But if you hadn't had that discussion about TikTok 18 months ago, you wouldn't be on it yet and doing this, investing in it, and you'd be like, oh, I'm not sure about that. But obviously you lean into it, learn a little bit, go and listen to talks and so forth. And yeah.
Exactly. I mean, we're talking 5-6 years ago, TikTok wasn't even a thing, and now it's like one of the biggest social media platforms. That's how quickly it moves, and you've got to stay abreast of it.
Yeah. So we're nearly there, Shaun. I've got a couple of questions left for you. So I think I'm interested to know sort of what you could share potentially about the roadmap and what maybe more on the marketing side, what you're leaning into, what you're planning on leaning into more this next 6-12 months. Obviously, I know you're on a lot of channels. Most of them had a good look last night, and you were then following me around everywhere, which is good, which is what we want to see. So, what are you leaning into more? Where do you feel you'll be leaning into more in terms of sort of doing more than you are now on the marketing side?
The biggest one, which is upcoming, is community. So we're, again, very lucky that a community is organically grown around our brand. So if you go to Facebook and search for LeMieux's Facebook groups, about 50 will pop up, and some of them have got like 50, 60,000 people in them. Now, we haven't encouraged that. We haven't built that. We haven't invested in that. It's just kind of happened naturally.
Yeah.
So now we want to look at how do we, A, get some ownership of that, and B, like nurture, encourage, and invest in it in a way that doesn't destroy that community, but gives us some ability to kind of shape it and steer it and contribute to it. And I think that's a massive unlock for us. If you look at some of the biggest household name brands, like Lego, for example, or Harley Davidson, or PlayStation, or, Red Bull, or you could name any of them, they've got these enormous communities around their brand, and that is what really has massively fueled their growth and their retention and made them household names in a sense. So that's a big one for us. That's something that we're really actively thinking about and trying to figure out. It's massively challenging. I definitely do not have all the answers now, but by Q1 of next year, we will hopefully have a full strategy and roadmap around that.
Oh, very interested. I'm very, very interested. So I think in 12 months, if you're up for it, we'll do an episode on community. Maybe 18 months, we'll do an episode on community. Yeah.
Yeah, sure. 18 months, I should have something to share by then.
Yeah, let's do it. I'll genuinely, we'll do that because I'm really intrigued and really, it's a big part of our agency, building a community around, the industry and the agency. And, yeah. Well, Shaun, it's been an absolute pleasure. I like to finish every episode with a book recommendation. Have a book to recommend to our listeners?
I have 2. For people starting out in business, The E-Myth by Michael Gerber will give you an excellent understanding of how to scale a small business, like the real basic fundamentals of how you build those blocks. I read that when I was very young, and it was a massive unlock for me. It was like a big aha moment that massively helped me. And then the other is for people in more senior positions or people aspiring to more senior positions. The Effective Executive by Peter Drucker is an absolutely excellent book.
Thank you. We'll get those linked up. I think eMyth is quite a quick read as well, isn't it? So you can soon plow through that. But yeah, I'll get those both linked up in the show notes. Well, Shaun, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on. For those that want to find out more about you, more about LeMieux's, what's the best way to do that?
Just search LeMieux's.
Yeah. And obviously you can find yourself on LinkedIn as well.
Yeah, I'm available on LinkedIn.
Fantastic.
And if you search LeMieux in Google, plenty will pop up about LeMieux's.
Fantastic. Well, thanks for coming on the show. I'm looking forward to getting this live, and I'll speak to you again. Thanks a lot.
Lovely. Thanks, Richard. Take it easy.
If you enjoyed this episode, hit the subscribe or follow button wherever you are listening to this podcast. So you're always the first to know when a new episode is released. Have a fantastic day, and I'll see you on the next one.